Okay, I started the recording. This is Glenn Lyvers with Prolific Press. This is a reading event from March 27th, 2021. And we're going to start off with Lynette Esposito. Hi, Lynette. You'll have to unmute your mic.
Okay, there I go. I guess I'm ready. I have one called Hungry Records. I'm here in Mount Laurel, New Jersey. It's sunshiny here. And this is an older poem I wrote. You know how you're in the kitchen all the time and you've got all this information on the refrigerator, at least I have on mine. So I called it Hungry Records. The story of my life is on my refrigerator magnets, organized like a map with no legend. Hills and valleys, small and smaller, restaurants and phone numbers and pictures of cousins, of mountains and kittens and slogans, reminders and lists and memories. And you, when you were younger, seems like last year, but no. I go by that door every day, backwards and forwards, a dolphin swimming in the shallows close to shore, where safety waits, silent as death. I keep the right distance in my passing, breathing in air like water, drowning.
If this is your first time, instead of clapping, you can signify using sign language for people. All right, did you have a second one?
On that first poem, I had a different word at the end. I had living, and my negative daughter said drowning, it's better. And I don't like negative endings, but she's more of a negative writer than me. The second one is because it's March, and it's been windy everywhere, so we are defined by the wind. A bundle of bony twigs at birth, a small bag filled with fluid and air. We are water that flows the earth. We are born to disappear, merging into the streams and rivers and all that nourishes the ground, the green and yellow. We are composed of summer breeze and winter snarl, failing into spring puddle, darkened with beige mud, woven like wet strings into damp, disappearing shadows of the invisible.
Thank you. I like the way your poems end, and I guess I'm with your daughter on that one. I'd like to.
I'll tell her. She's a better poet than me, but she doesn't publish. She's the one with the new 2-month-old.
They both resonate very well. Thank you. James on the hotline. James Nicola.
Yes, hello. Unmuted. Good. Okay. Hello, everybody. James Nicola here on the telephone icon. I'm going to do this one called Lucy Van Pelt, and just mention it was, just anecdotally, it was turned down 66 times and then accepted by the 67th and 68th place back to back, and they both published it, and they were Caveat Lector and Two Bridges Review. So send them your wonderful work. And then it later appeared in is in a collection called Wind in the Cave, which Finishing Line did. So after 66 rejections, it got published 3 times in a year. Here it is, Lucy Van Pelt. Dreaming that Schroeder loved her as his queen, she let her dreams grow into an obsession. Then he ran off with someone 17, and she fell into a bout of depression so bad her brother had to bring her to emergency. From there, intensive care. Then they transferred her to the state home, where she told me, when she finally realized who I was, that she'd never even been kissed by anyone but Snoopy. Now she lives in the city alone. Her therapist tells her that only someone who forgives herself can be healed. So she keeps a list of faults she shows me when I am in town and drop by, though I wish she'd put it down. She's almost proud of her new ones. They're all part of the process, she says. They bring hope. I usually bring more snapshots for her wall of Linus, her brother, my sister Sally, and their children who are our nephews and nieces, but seem only to confuse her. Sometimes they're so numerous now. Charlie Brown, she cries through wild tears. Charlie Brown, you never should have let me jerk that ball. You must hate me today. I tell her, nope. She shakes. I ease her to a seat, assure her. Childhood trials, they say, build character. Don't think about it. I don't, nor of her, often. But I do sit with her an hour.
I love it.
Thanks for listening. I also thought of this because of your Inwood journal. I figured it's kind of a Inwood, Indiana sort of poem.
Oh, that's great. I love it. That is really nice. Thank you for
Thank you.
sharing that. Did you have another one?
I do. This one just got picked up. It's called Traffic Signs, and it's an abject love sonnet. And it just got picked up by Ricochet Review, brand new. So send stuff to them if you want to get published. I take notes when other people mention those things from your last things. I figured I mention where things are happening. Traffic signs. We do not come with manuals, I know, to help us get to where we want to go. But we come from an age when people read how-to books, while many a TV show advised us how to adjust, like Driver's Ed, as if the road of life had warning lights and levers came with dashboards and controls to optimize the destinies of souls. It seems, though, that your traffic signs are blinking. If so, I can adjust by going slow or stopping. And of what hue are you thinking? But even steady red might switch on nights when no one's on your road, but me, I mean, to blinking red, then amber, and then green. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. James, you just have a way about you, buddy. That is really
I'm so happy I
nice.
could be here today. Last time I couldn't make it, so I'm so nice to hear your lovely voice and comments and all your wonderful poets. And hi, everybody. I'm so happy to be here. I'll be listening the whole time. Thank you.
That's fantastic.
So
All right.
you have something nice to say about everyone, and that's a beautiful thing. So anyway,
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay.
Oop, I muted him and he was not done. I apologize. Okay, Mary Gunn, all the way from some faraway land. On the hotline.
Hello, Glenn.
Hi.
Glenn, can you hear me?
Yep. Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, this is Mary Gunn. I'm on the phone from Ireland. It's very stormy here at the moment, so I hope you can still hear above that. I have two poems to read. The first one is a tanka, and it was published some years ago in the newsletter of the local college where I attended a night class. And it goes like this. My fingers struggle to keep up in tin whistle class, a group of adult learners practicing their ABCs. And the second one is a haiku, which was published by Prolific Press's 50 Haikus back in, I think it was 2016. A recognizable tune wafting down the stairs, yellow tulips.
Very nice. Tight compression on that too.
Yeah, it's interesting. I always find it interesting that two poems were written at very different times about different things could actually be read as a sequence. You could read that the tanka was in the autumn when I was practicing, and then the other one could be in the spring when I was actually playing like I knew what I was doing.
Well, I enjoyed it very much. Thank you. Thank you for that, and thank you for dialing in. Okay, we're going to move on to John Mcmullen.
Thank you, Glenn. Vaccine. Oh, let me push my new book, 2020, the year of the coronavirus. It's up on Amazon if anyone's interested. I hope so. Well, Vaccine Ramblings. My wife, Barbara Mcmullen, and I received our second vaccine shot in the arm on March 11th, 2021. The date had special significance for me. It was the 70th anniversary of my father's death. Some background. I have no problem with shots, no fear of getting them, never reaction to any of them. Barbara, on the other hand, is never happy about getting them, often has arm pain or for taking them. We each had the Moderna injection at 11 a.m., waited a half hour at the facility, and then went home. She had some swelling in her arm and minor pain. I had neither, just the normal reactions. Our normal reactions, that is, until 2 a.m., when I woke up with a scream and the worst pain in my useless left arm, worse than kidney stones, broken wrists, snapped right leg tendon, assorted basketball injuries, or so it seemed. I was told by a nursing friend that online that I should ice it in 15-minute periods, and a strong reaction indicated the vaccine was working. Small solace. By the next morning, the pain was tolerable. It returned in lesser degree every night for the next 4, probably being brought on by my turning over the arm in sleep. Was the excruciating experience worth it? Absolutely. Now I probably won't die from the coronavirus, nor would you if vaccinated. And the second poem was brought on by Lynette and I talking about the weather earlier, and I thought of how the weather changed. And I wrote this a couple of years ago. Oklahoma weather. Forever and a day ago, too many years to count, I was in Lawton, Oklahoma in the Army. Many New Yorkers were with me and found many reasons to complain. One of the constant complaints was the weather. We had never seen anything like it. The temperature could swing 30 to 40 degrees in a few hours. If the wind across the plains was coming up from Mexico, hot as hell. If down from Illinois, cold as that witch's tit. We had a name for it, fucking Oklahoma weather. 2 years later, fucking Oklahoma weather came to New York and stayed. Thank you.
All right. Well, I appreciate the colorful language of your poetry there. We've all been there. That's great. All right. I am looking for Beth Spraggins.
Tis I write under Elizabeth Spencer Spraggins, so I renamed myself on Zoom. I had forgotten how to do that. I just retaught myself. Well, I thought that I would, since we're all tired of being cooped up, I thought I would take you on a journey today. So first we're going to Puerto Rico, which I visited several years ago, and had the delightful experience of taking a kayak trip in one of the 3 bioluminescent bays. They have dinoflagellates that glow in the dark when they're disturbed. Have any of you been there or experienced that? Yeah, it's amazing. It's otherworldly. And so I'm going to read one from my newest book, Waltzing with Water, which my intrepid publisher published despite the pandemic. And this one is an American style taco, which deliberately breaks some of the taco rules you'll pick up on when I read it. For one, it has a title, Luminescence. Moonstones of blue-green glow in waves of liquid light when we stir the stars and dip our oars in wonder. Magic dances on my hand. Thank you. And the other trip we'll take is to the Grand Canyon in Arizona. And I hope some of you have had that delightful experience, perhaps. One of the local legends holds that at dusk, a magical phenomenon occurs. And during the daylight hours, the differences in air temperature generate currents, and the air rises and falls. And according to the locals, at nightfall, when the temperature falls and the warm air rises and cooler air sinks for one last time, they say that the canyon is breathing its last breath of the day. And so this one is entitled Songs of the Southern Rim. and it's a traditional Irish form. Quiet calls from the corners of these walls as a frosted sun descends and lends flame to painted halls. Raven wings whisper when the canyon sings lullabies of lavender on her harp of pinion strings. Grace note soars, condors row on silent oars, ferry cargo of my dreams over streams to heaven's shores as dusk falls. One last breath, the warm wind stalls just before the daylight dies. Red rock sighs and quiet calls. Thank you.
Thank you. Good example of so those internal slant rhymes. I mean, you put the emphasis with the way that you read it, but I think that if you saw that on paper and read it, it'd be just as enjoyable. It was very well done. Sometimes when people read their works, I try to imagine how it looks on the page, and it's two different things, right? Basically, you can sort of get a little bit of a different feel for a poem. That's why I love these readings, because we get to see, or we get to hear somebody read their own work. Just really brings it to life. Michael Flanagan.
Okay, I have two short ones. This one I just wrote this morning. Daffodils laughing beside your gravestone in their stolen vase. And I actually have three up, so I'm going to check which of the other two I want to read. This one I wrote is I haven't gone back to fiddle with it, but I think it's a little wordy. Many's the year we toasted St. Pat and each other. Now I sit alone tying flies.
Nice. I'm very well that I'm a big fan of short forms, and you just do it so well. Thank you for that. All right, I'm going to sneak in and read one. I got a couple of emails. I appreciate people saying, don't forget to read. And I also don't want all the videos to have me at the beginning, because it just seems so vain. But I like to read, so I'm going to read one. This piece is from my Harborton book. I don't know if I've read it before in any other readings, but this is the one I get a lot of feedback on, or that I've gotten the most feedback on. It's called The Drama Teacher's Parade Float in the Rain. It might be perfection, this impossible Memorial Day memory, the smell of a wool blanket pulled from behind the seat of a camouflaged bus, damp and fragrant over her yielding shoulders. The moment I smelled the scent of her, the moment she wasn't the drama teacher, the moment ageless between us. By camouflaged, I mean the bus was covered in papier-mâché parade flowers, pink, each meticulously formed by her caressing hands, white, pasted, smooth, artistic hands, the same hands that missed a blouse button, the same hands on the steering wheel. She drove the lumbering float so slowly that the baton twirlers could march ahead of us, dancing between our pink flowers and the dump truck filled with the high school band playing John Philip Sousa's Our Flirtation, interrupted by every rocking pothole in the road. It started to rain. Out came colorful umbrellas, filling both sides of the road. The warm eastern shore potato rain rivulets spread down the windshield, breaking the world into a Monet image. The red, white, and blue twirlers, the rainbow bloom of umbrellas, wag-flaving children, starchy blue band uniforms, and time itself, all leisurely absorbed by the impossibly slow and dreamy pace of our bus, dripping paper mache flowers as we progressed along the saline, streaming streets while fog formed on the hot windshield until she said at last, "We need air." She closed her window, manually cranking the knob, tilting hard side to side, each turn releasing her blouse a little, the erupting air conditioner pebbling her insistent chest while she leaned forward, hard, desperately trying to follow the pale stockings of the baton twirlers ahead. I draped the musky wool over her, my arm around her shoulder for a moment, everything between us touching, for an innocent reason, but touching. And then it happened, a profound tension, her sweltering body draining rivulets of sweat down into the cotton folds of her open blouse, the sweet smell of her mixed with the musk of wool, the windshield Monet of colors separating us from the world, and I'm convinced we both sensed it. A perfect moment of timeless, ageless perfection. The moment I wasn't a boy. The moment she wasn't a teacher. The moment I will remember all of my life. And I'm just going to read one today. So, some smiles. Thank you all for the feedback. I appreciate that. Alexandra Coates.
Thank you so much. I finally wrote a poem that's in 2 languages. Is it okay if I read that?
Of course.
Okay. I hear my mother singing. I hear my mother singing when I put my hands up. Guten Abend, gute Nacht, mit Rosen bedacht, mit Näglein besteckt, all hammered shut. Her voice a stream that swirls and flows. Rockabye baby in the treetop, when the wind blows. When the bough breaks, the cradle will fall. Let the chatter stop, or else be pecked. Much good feed our crops to fill, my hens sleep and dream. Morgen früh, wenn Gott will, wirst du wieder geweckt. If I should die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take. Wohet von des Tages moon. Daisy dances for Sister Moon. Abendstille überall, nur am Bach die Nachtigall. Singt ihr weise, klagend und leise. Owls hooting, foxes yapping. Full moon setting, distant rooster crows. Wachet auf, wachet auf. May it be day soon. And, oh my goodness, sorry. The other one is a color poem, if I can get it to open. Okay. Maybe it doesn't want to open. Weird. Okay, so I guess I'll read the other one, which is really, I've never written, I'm not sure what this is a poem, so maybe Glenn can tell us. Message from silence. In the silence of the clouds, a face took shape and began to speak. It was a friend who had passed to spirit many, many years ago. The cloud face moved its mouth, its silent mouth. Number 25 on a piece of paper pinned to a leotard. I was there, the face said. The ballet school entrance exam, my heart skipped as chuffs somersaulted through the moving cloud. A young man took form with a thin mustache. My partner at the final ball. It's impossible, I thought. Can clouds see everything, even through walls? The cloud curled up to push a woman up a mountain to the top. One small curl held her hand as she descended the other side. That was I, said the cloud, who pushed you up the mountain and guided you safely across the border. In silence, the cloud faded into light. Thank you.
Thank you. I am trying to have a little less commentary today because I want to keep things moving along. That was very nice. If poetry is indeed words elevated, I think it qualifies. All right. Dennis Malsby.
Hi, folks. I'm putting together a full-size book of poetry. This is the first, it's going to be entitled Heart Songs, and this is the first poem in the book. Your heart song, velvet strokes in the dark. I embrace the beat, the solo sounds, but lack the means to fashion you from dreams. The best I attain, a silhouette, a shadow shape, no tender warmth to drape across my bed. The pillows redolent of flowers, new-tuned earth, ageless woman scent, leaves my body discontent. Longing drives me weary of it all. The mystery, our phantom history, betrays my desire to make you known, put flesh on bone, touch your face and live immersed in my delusion. Second poem is be classified as ekphrastic. The rocker sits still and alone on the front porch, sun-bleached oak skin turned ash gray. Breezes sweep up through high growths of both thistles and Jimson weeds. Gusts whistle through broken-toothed porch latticework, slither around curlicue carved columns to bat the rocker. Its dusty twin runners emit double mouse squeaks as they move back and forth. Feral heirloom hollyhocks sway and rap against the faded paint of shiplap siding. In play with the winds, stained calico curtains become signal flags flapping in blind second-story windows. Tiny taloned pigeon feet tap dance in the attic. Their blue-gray wings flutter an a cappella harmony. The chair's rocking, evokes dreams of red yarn-haired Raggedy Ann dolls, lace bonnets, flowered sundresses, lemonade, and sugar cookies.
Nice job. When you're writing these pieces, do you read them out loud and make changes, or do you write them so that they lay on the page and then you just sort of bring them to life when you read them?
I would say some of both, but I think the best reviews come from writers groups. I'm in a couple of different writers groups that I read these to, and then they give me feedback, and it always opens up things that I didn't anticipate or imagine that makes the poem better.
Yeah, well, that was very good. I liked the cadence. There was this sort of 2-3 cadence there for a short part of the poem where it sort of felt spiritual and it followed that sort of old hymnal, the cadence, from old hymns, and it was very interesting. And then it made me really wonder your process there. It was very good. And then you broke it, and it felt right when you broke it, so that was equally great. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Glenn.
Bob Moreland. Or Robert Moreland.
I'll get unmuted. I'm Bob Moreland. I'm from southeast Wisconsin, here on Lake Michigan, where fog is rolled in. This is a sonnet. It's called League of Her Own. League of Her Own. Every day is opening day, all new, like the smell of your left-handed glove. Softball brings the 9-year-old gleam anew. Passion gone wild, second chances for love. Lineup complete, you step up to the plate. Stare down the poor pitcher, give him a wink. Then you bite your tongue as you concentrate. Wind up comes flying, white stitched clincher sinks. Connect with the crack of an ash-boned bat, with the gusto of a Ruth. The ball sails true beyond the left field fence. You tip your hat, I told you so, with an expletive or two. My Chicago-born wife, all fun, no fret. We have our World Series with no regrets. This is called Plains. Plains. Grasslands extend to the false horizon, shed mountain memories and salty seas, licking coast that neglect the in-between. Above, the silence of a prairie twilight looms while the Big Dipper appears. I take pause, hear the heartbeat in my own ears. Old friend, your secret is safe with me. Those uppity New Englanders and laid-back West Coasters will never know the wonder of afternoon thunderstorms marching east, the majesty of a wind-borne ballet as tall grass dancers sway in synchrony, or the melancholy of a bur oak, the hidden perch of a great horned owl mournfully querying this darkest night. I accept my mortality in all its naked glory, for the fear of death cannot touch me tonight as I soar on red-tail hawk wings, savoring the brisk night air. Thank you.
Thank you. Am I the only person that thought that Ernest Lawrence Thayer's Casey at the Bat was the poem I'm going to have to read sometime soon? I have to go revisit that. It just really popped into my head. Thank you, Bob. It was nice, and it was a great subject matter. Thomas Festa.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Great. So the first poem I'm going to read is about my very first day on my very first job. And it's called The Motion Picture Hospital. This is, it was a place in Los Angeles that was funded by the Screen Actors Guild and the Directors Guild. And it had, residential portions and outpatient. So at any rate, this was where I first worked. It's called the Motion Picture Hospital. Wherever you were in F Ward, you could hear the ancient voice. In that bleached out, reeking stainless steel place where forgotten child actors went to die, I delivered pureed splat on trays, heart fat, ears heavy, in my B-movie suburb of LA. The old lady cried out, not a question, can you hear me? Pleading, pitch rising, can you help me? Gringo green, age 15, I entered the room, stared into the milked abyss of her blind eyes, and answered her. And saw out the window like a movie screen, crows seeking asylum in a lonely sycamore, plastic bags blowing in an abandoned lot, and overlaid trails of mascara down a slack, blank face. Can you see me? She droned on like this every day, though I couldn't have known when first I crossed that threshold, entered her room and lied, yes. And she, staring at nothing with such ferocity and terror, cried, can you help me, God? A silent movie's one-time star. Here's the second poem, which is called That There Could Be Such Lightness in the World. When you asked if we could wander the cemetery grounds, it brought back our first touch, how in the funeral home foyer, we hugged as if all love began in loss. Light struck earthen hospice, today's spring equinox, the Chalcedony's angel face featureless, gone to an even misty gray. Still, observe the posture of oblation, the will of stone. After winter's longest, shortest month, day once again equals night. In the tombstone's smooth-worn thresholds, autumn means increase as harvest or utter destruction. Here's not a painter's precision of blueness, no tube of cerulean, ultramarine, or cobalt, but unbroken sky above skulls lodged in arroyo mud, incised reminders, scattered offerings of odd memorials, faded baseball caps, mute ukuleles, empty Guinness bottles, whatever scraps of recollection might be left to stand in for what meant. You, brightness, are a world unto yourself. In this seance of the senses, I listen, hand in disbelieving hand. For this duration, your light before me, even I can withstand such reverence and the silence after. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. That was nice. Good resonance, good alliteration. I like the way that you sort of hit that sweet spot without going too far. Michael Watterson.
Thank you, Glenn. Stand by one moment, please. So, thank you. It is that time of year. I also have a baseball poem. There's a word in it that baseball fans probably know, but in case you're not, the word is fungo. Fungo is an exercise where a coach basically hits ground balls to fielders to practice, and uses a special bat called a fungo bat, which is small and light, and that I make reference to that in here. This poem is called Baseball on the Radio. As of Monday, it's on the Bookends Review website. That's thebookendsreview.com. Baseball on the radio. Long before desire benched the boy I was and took the field, we escaped baking in our old brick oven those summer nights when Pops ran a cord to the porch window so we could sit listening to katydid shrieks, compete with buzzing ballpark fans peppered by vendors hawking cold beer and peanuts as fireflies signaled heater deuce. The zenith glowed like the tip of Pop's cigar as the commentator fungoed lapidary stats between plug of chew yarns, green as the outfield. Like the one about Casey Stengel, booed at the plate in Brooklyn, Casey doffed his cap, releasing a bird that flew over the stunned, silent crowd. Or the time he thought it too dark to play and signaled the bullpen with a lantern. Those spells kept us wrapped in the windup, the pitch, the crack of horsehide on ash, the majestic arc pictured in the words of a waking dream, poetry flying like Casey's dove, timeless as a summer night on waves of amplitude, out to diamond stars, modulated memories crackling with static, fading in and out. Thank you. And the second one, I try and follow the latest developments on the frontiers of science, and we've come a long way from Newton's mechanical universe, and cosmology today reminds me at once of film noir combined with surrealism. And so this is a brief poem that was published a couple of years ago on a website called The Martian Chronicles. It's called Noir Matter. Something's missing. Something I'm missing. Sin so original, it's a window, an open door no one thinks to walk through, except maybe like that guy Magritte, the father of the neutron palm, on an apparition diet, and the heat in a glass web waving bye-bye, taken for a ride out to the edge. Thanks.
All right. Jamia Allen Bethel.
There we go. I'm having a lot of fun listening here. This is great. Just a heads up, thanks to Prolific Press for this opportunity. I have publication coming out in the fall, and a new collection I just actually finished. I'm in editing right now. And this one, both of these are from the new collection. The new collection is titled The Afternoon of an Echo. This first one is entitled On Unfurled Canvas. And it is prompted by a rather famous quote from Rainier Maria Rilke. Perhaps all the dragons in our lives are princesses who are only waiting to see us act just once with beauty and courage. On Unfurled Canvas. In ancient days, when sailing around the world was a frightening contemplation, the maps of the known world ended with the words, "Beyond this, there be dragons." There remains a great deal we do not and perhaps cannot know. The grandest discoveries are held in reserve from our fear of exploration of epiphanies that bring our souls to song. On these as yet uncharted shores, on unfurled canvas, creation awaits our brushstrokes, the mark of our pen, our hand in the clay and on the walls of caves. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Nice resonance.
this one is a tiny bit autobiographical, and I mean tiny. The poem's not, but the autobiography is, okay? Title of the poem is Froggy Went A-Courtin'. It was the frog poem, Galway, that took possession of Hiram's feminine spirit, finally finding the key she'd been searching for since Colorado, Maine, and Florida. Not unlike the man in the parable looking for his lost keys under the better streetlight. An odd place, the deep Southeast Texas bayou country, with its swamp ghosts moving in the methane fire, seeking the poets, singers, guitars, and harmonica players for their songs, painters and photographers for their dream-fevered, revelatory, transcendent experiences rising under moonlight from those fog-mixed gases. So now my bookshelves sag, filled with volumes of Halloween songs, wrapped around an altar of a tiny Buddha, a white-winged dove, protected by a pig and a frog. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Very, very enjoyable. I like the use of objects there to bring the reader in. That was very well done. Okay, Tom Kazis.
Can you hear me? I don't. Good.
Yes.
Good. It's Kazis, actually.
Kansas, I'm
That's
sorry.
okay. That's okay.
Nope, I can't hear you. You muted yourself.
Okay, here we go.
There. Yep.
The first one is a little long on the long side, and it was inspired by a New Yorker cartoon that I saw, and the New Yorker cartoon was Eve was standing under the apple tree, and she's looking up at the snake, and she's saying, "Holy crap, that snake can speak." So that inspired this poem, and it's called "The Loss of Innocence." Imagine her surprise when Eve discovered the snake could speak. Imagine as she stood there in front of the apple tree, watching the snake slither down the trunk, its serpent tongue flicking outward so sweetly budge. Imagine how she stood there gaping, her naked, unblemished body, her unblemished pubescent body quivering at his honeyed words as he moved toward her, wrapping his long linear length around her legs, his smooth, warm skin heating, tickling her flesh as he inched upward, slowly between her thighs to her belly, caressing her tiny breasts, coiling around her neck as he faced her. Sweet words hissing softly from his lips, mere inches from her face, as his pointed, mesmerizing tongue flicked in and out. Imagine her frozen in place as he moved to her ear, his tongue touching it ever so lightly, whispering words she had never heard, before he inched back down to her chest, to her belly, around her buttocks, and between her legs and feet, as she stood immobile, paralyzed. He climbed back up the tree to a low branch, which bent under his weight, and brought a bright red anurka before her pure and cherub face. "Rub it against your cheek," he said. "Feel the skin, so smooth. See its pretty red color. Now touch it to your lips, and let your tongue feel it too." She took the apple in her hands. It was formidable, heavy and hard, its blushing, smooth skin, so bright, so pretty. "Now kiss it," he said. "Lick it. You don't have to bite, but it is sweet inside," said the snake. "Crisp and juicy. It will make you feel good. It will make you feel alive." "Bite," he said. "Just a nibble, and you will see." She brought the apple close. Her tiny teeth pierced the skin. Sweet nectar filled her mouth. As her eyes opened wide, she wiped her chin with the back of her hand and was suddenly afraid, a new, unfamiliar feeling. She cried out for Adam, and he appeared as in a dream, was next to her in an instant. "You're bleeding," he said, seeing red running down between her legs. "No," she said, "it's the juice." His fingers touched the liquid on her thigh, and he brought them up and smelled blood. She held the apple before his face. "Touch it with your lips," she said, "with your tongue. Taste the sweetness," she said, and her eyes filled with tears. Moved, Adam moved the fruit to his mouth, and he could smell and taste its sweetness even before he bit. He shut his eyes and saw paradise for the last time as his mouth closed on the fruit. Eve put her hands on his chest, then down to his hips, and he began to swell between his legs. God, who watched from his perch, rustled leaves, and the children, alarmed, ran to the bushes, where Adam began to shake, and Eve, suddenly filled with shame and horror, began to weep as she watched the snake, still on that low branch, flick its tongue in and out at the approach of the Lord. This second poem is my dad was a construction painter. He painted bridges all over the country, and we moved to South Dakota one summer, and he liked to fish. He was fishing all the time, and he didn't fish with a pole. He fished with a hand line, where he twirled it around and throw it in the water. And then we moved back to our house in Baltimore. My parents married very young, and they ended up getting divorced after a number of years. But this is called Fishtail. I want to see my dad fishing again on the banks of the Missouri River, a cigarette angled out of his mouth as he feeds an earthworm onto a hook, then slowly windmills his hand line round and round before letting it fly in an arc to the water. I want to see my mom look up from her Life magazine when Dad begins to flirt with a fish, whispering to it and tenderly teasing his line with little tugs as the fish nibbles the bait. I want to see Mom's face flush when Dad yanks the line to snag his prey. I want to see my little sister run and shriek and clap, her mop of curls flying when a needle-nosed sturgeon jumps 50 feet out and splashes back into the river, fighting, as Dad pulls it in, hand over hand. The line piling in a glistening circle at his feet, the cigarette gathering ash. I want to see the amused faces of fishermen with their lure-laden vest marvel at this swarthy foreigner with no pole, no net, wearing black shoes, wool slacks, and a sweat-stained Sunday shirt as he pulls a flopping fish out of the water and holds it up by a gill, his Salvador Dali mustache curling towards heaven. Yes, I want to open my eyes and see this all again. And I want to erase the vision of Mom and Dad, red-faced and toe-to-toe, in the living room of our small row house, pulling at the lines of their marriage, fabricating fishtails from the depths of their lost love. Thank you.
Thank you. Particularly that first poem, how quick those lines move. I'd like to suggest that you might enjoy this poet. It's Frederick Seidel. This book of his called Going Fast. I think that you might appreciate the speed of those poems, the way that Frederick Seidel is the name. I don't know if you can see that. Patrick Reardon.
Well, hello, everybody. I used to be a reporter with the Chicago Tribune, and every once in a while I'll dip into one of my experiences as a reporter to write about it. And that's what this was. The poem is called The Day Before the 1996 Democratic National Convention. They were famous and short, the two of them and the folky others, guitarless, skittering and kittering around the empty afternoon stage like 8-year-old cousins who see each other rarely and make the most of it when they do. He was that night's musical headliner, sideshow to the pals, who I saw out of the corner of my eye as I headed for an interview with the ex-radical, ex-movie star husband, ex-state senator. She was frumpy, who that night on stage would be as sexy as 3 open blouse buttons. Not frumpy, ordinary, washed out, even ugly in a distinctive way, as if a saint or royalty or a blues singer. At Target, she would have been just one of us, on the bus, in a line for one of her concerts. They were 46 or so, my age. I was tall and never skittered. Back in school, I would have been a hall monitor if my school had hall monitors, stiff as a board, walking always into the wind. This day stiff with duty to find and record the ex-radical, still full of words. They skittered and frittered as I moved past in a hurry on my way to somewhere backstage. They buried my story the next day in the paper. And then a friend of mine has the Silver Birch Press, and she has these prompts to generate a lot of poems on the same subject. This is one that that's going to be the subject is called "I Am Waiting." It has to do with Ferlinghetti just having died, and to recognize that one of his great poems has that repeating line, "I'm waiting and I'm still waiting." So this one is called "Sugar Jets." I was 6 and unclear on the concept. The commercial, black and white, for sugar jets told me if I ate a bowl, I would be jet propelled. I could see the boy and girl eat sugar jets and fly around the box jet propelled. They were drawings, but a contract was offered, I thought. You can see where this is going. I nagged my mother or maybe my father, a scary proposition either way, to buy sugar jets without saying why. A box was bought, I ate a bowl, and went to the back porch 2 flights up from the pavement and lawn below, looked out over the yard and alley and blacktop, a gray pavement playground. At least I didn't throw myself off. Instead, I waited for whatever would happen to jet propel me out into the air and into freedom and into wonder, maybe a rebirth of wonder. I'm still waiting. Thank you.
Sugar jets. Gosh, I was just thinking it's been 21 years since Y2K. Oh, in the year 2000, I wrote this poem about being really disappointed that we didn't have like flying cars and stuff. You remember, like when I was a kid, I don't know if some of you are as old or as me, or when I was a kid, we thought in the year 2000 people would be flying around with jetpacks and everything was going to be amazing, and then it was like a big letdown. It was mostly the same, and I wasn't living on the moon, and it was something funny. Julie Dixon.
We'll just call you George Jetson.
There you go.
This poem is called Reduced to. His wizened form curls like a sea, perhaps to retain something of his name, Culverhouse, since he can no longer speak, wants recognition that he is more than a 90-year-old man, defined by incontinence and grizzled face, unshaven. Aids do not bother, nor insert hearing aids. Without them, Animal Planet is his only distraction from silence, since no family visits are permitted. Perhaps he sees himself as the lion basking in sun, as he used to on a lawn chaise during first days of summer, dreaming of restoration plans on the Panama Canal in '51, Cornell classrooms, canoeing Ontario, labor union disputes mediated, or even mowing, splitting wood, driving top down in a canary yellow Volkswagen convertible. But no, he is reduced to a bedsitter, sleeping in a curve, unlike the arm holding a tennis racket or paddling kayak on the pond, lamenting loss of memory as well as family in COVID times. Shown photographs of youth, smiles only in past recollection, present non-existent, somewhere lost in Germany during the war, or jumping trains with his brother at dusk just for fun. Thank you. This other poem was in Prolific Press in 2018, and I was lucky enough to have it republished in 2 other journals and subsequently nominated for a Pushcart Prize. So Glenn, you kicked it all off. It's called The Sky Must Remember. A prisoner of memories, I journey through a dark cavern, painted pictures of my past on its walls, a deep cavern that empties into night. I long to walk out onto a high overlook, to discover calm currents, a wild ocean bloom bursting with an after storm smell. The sky must remember the past, but allow me to transcend into waves, breathing in the sea as I rush through time, pitting yesterday against tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you. Certain cadence that's full of drama in the way that you read. I couldn't help it. Little stupid things pop into my head. Not stupid, but just things. The Dancing with Wolves movie, Kevin Costner reads, from his little journal. And I'm telling you what, the cadence of that sounded just like the cadence of that first piece. and go back and listen. I bet you get it. All right, Edward Ahern.
Okay. These both are recent. They both got picked up last week, and they both pretty much derive from a mildly heretical Catholicism. The first one is called The School Outing. Happens to be quite true. I was 12. The School Outing. This admission serves as confession, for I will never reveal it to a priest. The transgression occurred after graduating from St. Eulalia Elementary School, Virgin and Martyr, AD 303, maybe. There is uncertainty about where and when she existed, or if she existed at all. A friend and I exited Sunday Mass. We wandered down a corridor to a little-used door that connected the church to adjoining school. The door, for unknown reason, was left unlocked, and we entered. We walked aimlessly, absorbing 3-month-old nostalgia, until reaching the lost and found. The pitiful lock was penknife picked, and we found Ali Baba's treasure. Generations of unclaimed marvels, fountain pens and mechanical pencils, scarves and lunchboxes and rulers, pins and watches and even rings, and a tray full of skeleton keys. As we strained our pockets in theft, we wondered if the keys might open all those unlocked classroom doors. And, miracle of evil, they did. Those 1920s locks giving entry into library and classrooms alike, except for Mother Superior's office, which had a stern-looking Yale cylinder. We jumbled books and spilled milk money, left rude messages on blackboards, and relocked doors behind us as we left, unencountered and unseen. We heard rumors of the later uproar. Current students were interrogated and accusations hurled at some, but graduates were left alone. I feared to use the pens and keychains lest they be recognized as pillaged, and one evening buried them all in a neighbor's backyard garden to perhaps be discovered by one more innocent than I, who wondered at antiques in a tin box. It was my unatoned, unexpiated crime. The second is a bit snarkier. It's called Petitions. It's always struck me as peculiar that invoking a demon by spellcasting is cause for corruption and damnation, while praying to a saint in similar tone is seen as redemptive and uplifting, even if I'm asking for the same things. Give me love, give me luck, give me looks. Maybe I can safely accomplish the gimmies by simultaneously appealing to both sides and letting them figure out who should take the call. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Very, very well read. Leonard Lund.
First piece is ekphrastic in nature. It's after the painting At the Theater by Prudence Heward, and it's written in the narrative voice of one of the two women who features in the artwork. A Boston marriage in Paris. To the Olympia and the ballet last night, a mix of comedy and beautiful young dancers. During the intermission, Kay moved her chair so that we could sit nearer and be heard above the auditory anarchy. Warm as the close hall was, the touch of our shoulders was comforting and flashed memories of summer nights with my sister beneath the moonlight that washed our bed. I so enjoy the company of another woman, no matter the looks our public closeness may sometimes draw. To bask in the strength and tenderness we give, unasked and without vows, is a joy I have yet to find when socially surrounded by men, except perhaps my brothers. Just before the bell, I half turned at a scratching note behind us to see a stranger. Charcoal stick to paper on her lap, committing us for future work. I smiled hesitantly at first, but her eyes assured me this was no act of prudery. Perhaps I'll try to find her so I can share that sketch with my companion. Break free. Sometimes I sense ghosts here. If there's fog on the roads, the radio serves as well as headlights to disperse it. I fly past deer and groundhogs eating at the edge, hold my breath long past dead skunks. Sometimes I find spirits here. Coming down towards San Diego, I break free of coastal foothills, and the smell of ocean lifts me from my seat to soar in the breakers, to bury in the sand with the Donax, dovetail peace and love. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that, Leonard. Robert Whalen.
Hi, thank you. My first time here. I live out in Rockport, Massachusetts. It's on Cape Ann. It's the little bump on the top of Massachusetts where we tell folks from Cape Cod we were named after a queen, you were named after a fish. I've got two. These are about relationships. A man who tried to protect. The one who heard about the death of your father and worried you're not eating. Who brings our daughter to see you with takeout chicken Alfredo while holding a ticket for a flight to your mother. I'm the man who never mentions that nightmare trip we took years ago with the kids so your parents could visit their grandchildren. We got lost. Old roads had changed and maps were useless. Synchronicity provided us an accidental tour of Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. The four of us had wandered there, guided by serendipity. Seeking more certain direction, I stopped to buy a GPS at Radio Shack. Then realized our location. So decided to squeeze us into a chance motel with a plan to examine history in the fields of the dead, where we found a silence that spoke of the consequences of perpetual battles. The next night, under a full moon, we pitched our tent in Shenandoah Valley. Kids were mesmerized by a visiting deer, all of us motionless in innocence. At dawn, we continued what had become a pilgrimage, elevated on Skyline Drive. A bear hurriedly crossed the road in front of us, head down, focused only on the concrete, worried about the impact of traveler's speed, slamming him into the vista full of smoky clouds. We had forgot for a while the fight that marked the beginning of a journey that had too much baggage to fit in the trunk. Always the same argument, only disguised as different topics. Stuck on repeat, whether we were together or apart. My fear that you would perish running too close to the edge. Your anger that I would never believe it when you said you could fly. And I got one more. This one's about the daughter that was brought to her mom in the last poem. And it's called As She Wraps My Wound. The white globe covered with dry, crinkled skin can beckon tears. As I slice it for dinner, it rotates in my grasp. The blade slips. Instead, I am the one who is cut. Red weeps from my finger. My youngest daughter, the last child still living with me, having heard my curse, responds with a Band-Aid. She is 1/5 my age, yet insists on caring for me, proclaiming to know better than I about tending small things. I am so much further along on this path we both now share that I worry I will meet the destination too soon, afraid she will not be prepared enough to complete the journey alone. As she wraps my wound, I feel better. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm curious, is there a lot of white space in your work there, or is it just a little slow on the, on paper, do you include a little bit more white space?
I tend to put line breaks where they're natural, where it would seem like you would have to take a breath. I want simple, plain language and conversational as best I can, but as you were saying, as lofty as I can make everyday speech, let's say. And so the first one was in 3-sentence verses. And the second one was one straight down with short lines.
Okay, well, I'm sure tercets work very well for that. All right, I enjoyed it. I'm hoping to get to read more of your work in the future. I got a couple of wows from people. Sent me little notes on the side here sometimes and say, wow, that was really great and powerful. I agree. That was very, very well done. Deborah
Debowski.
Debowski. There you go.
Thank you. I have 2 very short haikus. 6 small white daisies in iridescent green vase reflect spring's sunlight. And the other one is sunrise stirs wonder of magnificence divine, heaven's glory glimpsed.
Mm-hmm. Good compression on that. Very nicely done. I love, that's one of the things that's so powerful about haiku. When people say it, you can see it, because you can form that in your mind the way it lays out on the paper. Very, very nice. William Kofod. You have to unmute yourself, Bill. Okay. Can you hear me, William? I can hear you very faintly now. Very, very faintly. You know what? Why don't I
How about this?
Oh, that's so much better. There you go.
I'm a techno geek with 5 computers in front of me and multiple microphones. So I just recently got a copy of the State Poetry biannual book of poems in the mail, which sort of surprised me because I'm no longer a member. But I found they used 3 of my poems in it. So one of them was page down, called To Be Free. On a distant island, on a far-off sea stands a statue that I will never see. There was a war where men did die so that they could be free. To the leaders the statue stands, one a forefather of my family. Yet my family had to flee. There was no room for different beliefs. So they left for a distant land, leaving all that they had, palace and lands of noble men, but left it all so they could believe. Years their journey to settle where they were free to worship, free to believe. Brought here their names and little else. Far away in a distant land stands his statue. My muse occasionally drops in on me when I'm driving to work in the early morning and puts almost fully formed poems in my head, and I write them down and publish them online. This one I wrote this morning is called Before the Moon. In the crisp chill of night, with a stirring of trace of breeze, tingling fear of unseen eyes, as my hackles begin to rise. Ebony skies with bright jewels scattered, pin bricks of rainbows that quickly glitter, pale moon like watching eye, baleful glaze upon me here. Whispering sound of cutting air so high above and far away, growing louder, drawing near, I turn my eyes unto the sky. Racing cloud across the stars, of sharp lines and angles clear, arrowing straight towards me now, 2 points of redness spear my soul. Blocking now the light of moon, silhouetting a shape of doom, reptilian wings of mighty beats, seeking its prey within the night. A flash of flame before it flares, and on cold wind of mighty roar, I tremble cold and weak, fearing that I be the prey it seeks. Across the land in dark of night, in clusters trembling many sheep, upon the dragon does feast, finding in them a tasty treat. Mutton wrapped in fleecy white, a toothsome treat in the night. Glowing eyes seek in the land, white flashes of the fearful sheep. Sharply turning, spearing down, with a roar of its wings it descends, lighting the night with bright flame, its talon stained with ruby red. With booming flaps it breaks its fall, grabbing one of the prey it did seek. With mighty flaps it again ascends, winging quickly into the night. Struggling in its grasp so tight, a maiden in a sweater tight. 'Tis not really the dragon's fault, it was seeking argyle white. Sorry about that. I'm not responsible for my muse.
You can't control it. Oh, I hate to ask you, but if you could send that to me by email, I'd like to see that on paper.
All right.
All right. Let's move on. Joe Viscinsky.
Hi, Glenn. Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for this opportunity, Glenn. The first poem that I wanted to read comes out of two passions. One is a love of teaching. I taught college for 45 years. And the other is a passionate hatred of reality television. The poem is called Extremities. No man is an island on Survivor. Not only are there women, but also other competitors and a crew large enough to fill the jumbo jet they all must have flown on to get to the set with their cameras, lights, makeup, editing console, soundboard, toiletries, wardrobes, caterers, security guards, and enough concocted angst and public relations playbooks to make hardship look real and yet not unduly tax the nearby resorts, bars, and clubs sitting just out of frame. A few bays away, against the backdrop of towering trees and carefully curated vegetation, the host of a travel show records for cable that moments before she had been the first white woman to ever witness the sacred initiation rites of the remote Notley Darnock tribe. The director calls cut, and the staff pack their gear, leaving behind the now empty garden of Pago Pago's Grand Hotel. The morning after these programs aired, I showed my class a film about the Kung, South African hunter-gatherers who, in their nomadic life, carry all they own across the Kalahari in animal hide slings the size of backpacks. Their contents weigh less than the textbooks of my pre-law students. The desert community is a network of kin whose elders tell tales uninterrupted by commercials. Their pronouncements are public service announcements. Sitting around evening fires, each generation adds its stories. No one is silenced. There is no process of elimination. In this desert, no man or woman is an island. The seasons of life do repeat themselves, but there are no reruns. Thank you. The second poem comes out of work that I did for quite a number of years in nursing homes and geriatric facilities. It's called Charlie 1, Charlie 2. He was dead, floating face up. It was true that goldfish did not live long, but this was for Helena one death too many too soon. When she became a resident at Maple Manor, the home that would never be a home, she was grateful for the daily indignities, having to shower under supervision, the noisy meals, an occasional enema, the blessing of renewed regularity. But she lost 3 roommates in less than 2.5 years. Congestive heart failure, a stroke, cancer. The first one loved to gossip, carved the dull, still air with her morning greeting, said her goodnights with sincerity. The women who replaced her had lost much of her speech, but muttered throaty approvals to Helena's stories. The last in line listened to those tales at first with animation, asking questions, adding her own anecdotes of family triumphs and tribulations, until the metastases took their toll after 6 months. When the volunteer from the PET program heard Helena's account of repeated loss, he offered her a small tank with 1 fish, putting this on a little table placed at a height from which she could feed and watch it swim from her wheelchair. Helena told her aide how she'd named him Charlie after her late husband. They're a lot like one another, she explained. Both like being in the water. Neither says much, but they listen well. Charlie, he lasted longer than the others in her room, almost 9 months. When she woke up one morning, there was the small white lozenge of his right underside glistening in window light. Do fish sleep, she asked herself, on their backs? She knew what she did not want to know, rang for help so that someone else could pronounce the truth of it. I'm so sorry, said her aide. You really enjoyed one another. Yes, offered Helena. Though I know it must sound crazy, having him here was a little like having my husband back with me. And now he's dead, again, just like the first time. Charlie 1, Charlie 2. I think I must have talked them both to death. Thank you.
Thank you, Joel. Trying to speed things up just a little. Len, Wendy. Len.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi, what I wanted to say to Tom Kazis, I believe, really loved your poem on Eve and the Snake. I think you did a better job than Genesis, even at getting at the self-destructive part of our human nature, how we get ourselves kicked out of paradise. And what I like to say too, one of the things I enjoy the most about these readings, hearing how poets create their work from their life experiences and things that they've gone through. For me, much of my work over the last few years has come from something happened 50 years ago when I was 24. And it'll explain the poem I'm about to read, which is in a book that trade publisher came out last year, the Normandy of Existence. Normandy of Existence under my pen name Nola Segundo. 24. Before in high school and college, I was a materialist, Gnostic materialist. I really don't even matter was real. There's no soul, no God. And basically, if you're honest, that means life is meaningless and so forth. Okay, which a lot of young people and older people still believe today. 24, I fell into a very profound clinical depression and had what they used to call a major nervous breakdown. Stop eating, stop sleeping, and basically you come apart physically, and mostly psychologically, the whole game. And to escape that suffering, because I was afraid of being committed for the rest of my life to a mental institution, I saw death as extinction. So I one day threw myself off a bridge in Montpelier, Vermont, into the Winooski River. My life was saved by a Vietnam veteran in his Harley who saw me and pulled me out. But I experienced in what they call later a near-death experience. It was not the white light sort, but then it was my near drowning was not accidental, and I am grateful for that. Terrible as it all was, for all of everything. Actually, from 17 to 27 is when I experienced a raft of things that awakened me. First at 17, I went to an interview at Gettysburg College. Someone in his poem mentioned Gettysburg. And I went at the afternoon to the battlefield, and in Devil's Den, I had this strange experience, which I discounted at the time. Physiologically, it was, from what I've read, it was like being shot, with the fear and everything. At 26, I went into Cambodia to teach English and saw the war close hand when Phnom Penh was attacked. That came out a year later, left that because everything was being shut down by the war. And 27, I went to Japan after I taught 6 months in Taiwan and went to Hiroshima and had another very strange experience. These are all in this poem I'm about to read to you from the Normandy of Existence. And it's colored my outlook on life. The problem, I used to think that life was meaningless, and now I realize the problem I believe is that life is so much meaning, and everything we do has meaning that we don't get most of it. The poem is called I Have Been to Places of Great Death. I can just take a water. By the way, it's taken me half a century to reveal most of this stuff to people because I don't know, I'm getting old and the clock's running out of this lifetime. And I don't really give it that much of a damn anymore what people think, I guess. But I have been to places of great death, walking the battlefield of Gettysburg as a lusty young man of no firm belief, who stepped between the great rocks of Devil's Den and felt his soul shudder as though he had been a soldier there and died in fear a long, long time ago. I taught my tongue to the gentle Khmers. The Civil War raged and the killing fields were being sown. I left before the heartless murdering began, the killing of over 1 million, teachers and students, doctors and farmers, the old, the young, each with a photo taken before dying, their pictures taped to classroom walls. And when I visited Hiroshima, now myself chastened by death's touch, and knowing my soul real, knowing a meaning absolute and of unseen forces that work good or ill. As I stood at the first ground zero, I once again shuddered to feel the pull of madness, though I knew not if it was my own or some remains of that evil which brought the fire and brimstone of a worldwide war. But by then I knew I could pray, and so opened my desperate heart and sought his mercy. And then I saw a sort of angel, who took me from that place of insanity, healing me while we wandered by the beauty of the inland sea as my storm calmed and left me, never to return. I have been to places of great death, and I felt death's cold, careless hands. But now I know what death itself fears, the light internal, which carries souls beyond time itself, like the winds of a love exceeding all understanding. The other one's briefer. This is actually the title poem to a collection that the same trade publisher brought out this month, but for some reason they like this stuff, called Of Ether and Earth. Again, Nola's a good one, because Nola's a lot cooler guy than Lynn is. It's called of Ether and Earth. Of ether and earth we are made, not fully one or the other, and so we always feel untethered, ever restless, prone at times to coming apart. Whole nations come apart. What chance then have you or I? Our souls seek the air, our bodies cling to earth. We are never one or the other, we are never at rest. Some wait for death, some wait for God. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn.
Okay.
Matthew Coles.
Hello. Thanks for letting me come to my first poetry reading.
You're welcome.
Hailing from Spokane, Washington. A haiku. Sakura blossoms in waves of red waterfalls spill out my center. And then a series of tonka on my favorite drink. Stone black darkened ore upon which my teapot sits. From within, a blaze, striking out into my eyes, glow of warmth into my heart. From wailing kettle steams forth age-defying potion, calling leaf to life. Brown elixir in the cup, warm meditation of taste. Sensuous opus to remain yet unwritten, so staying unseen. Emboldened sweetness of taste, moving on to memory. First cup passes on, yielding forth to the next. Depth of grace kiss. Flitting moment drawn of ease, pours past, then on again. Thank you.
Thank you. You read very well. I wouldn't have known that was your first time. Thanks, and I hope that you come back many times in the future. Hope to read more of your work. Danielle.
Hello, I'm also new. My first poem is called Take Off Your Armor. Take off your armor, my dear. You always want to be ready for war, but it is tiring your bones. Take it off and rest in the peacetime. Take off your chest plate, my dear. You always want to protect your heart, but it is cinched too tightly. Take it off and relearn how to breathe deeply. Take off your helmet, my dear. You always want to hide the fear in your eyes, but it is obscuring your vision. Take it off and see the world in a new light. Take off your boots, my dear. You always want to walk with purpose, but they are weighing down your step. Take them off and remember how to run. Take off your armor, my dear. You always want to be a knight, but the only dragons around are in your mind. Take it off and we will slay them together. And the second poem is called Spring at Last. Was I the first to ask? Was that why your answer was choked with flowers that kept pouring from your mouth? A simple question made you bloom, stems thrusting through the gap between your front teeth, desperate for sunlight, desperate to be seen. Their seeds must have been planted long ago and took root in your mind and heart. How did you live with leafy vines winding through your veins and nerves? How did it feel to be a greenhouse? Petals coated your words, and by the time you were done speaking, the smell of springtime surrounded us. Since that day, spring has been the prettiest of seasons to me. What would have happened if I had never asked for your dreams? What if you had shied from my persuasions? I wonder if those plants would still have bloomed, not needing my help because you are their rightful tender, or if you would have let weeds run wild, wrapping around your ribcage until they choked you from inside. Thank you.
Very nice. Thanks. What would have happened if you would have shied from my persuasions? That's nice. I like that line. Very, very well done. Herb.
All right, you can hear me. This is from one of my 2019 books, Frozen in Memory. I watch a movie and see the works of stuntmen and know that once I could run and fight and blow through the obstacle course. There is a literature of old folks that is missing, a body of work describing the antinomy of knowing you cannot do those things that you so vividly remember doing, that you can still feel the movement and sensation. In me courses the knowledge that once, through martial arts, I routinely did things to make a Hollywood stuntman jealous, and now the people around me cannot see in me any clue of moments frozen in my memory, feeding the knowledge that once I could, and often I did. And this one is from Poetry Quarterly. Darkness always comes. However it is faced, in darkness or artificial light, decompression or high anxiety, high-class sedatives or rot gut moonshine, in feigned security or back alley, no one escapes the night. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Well read. Carol Casey.
Okay, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, this first poem is one I've just written not long ago. It's about March. March melts. The snow is freeze melt frozen into ice crystals, stacked haphazard, easily glass shattered, a million minuscule diamond dreams dissolving. The sun sparks sharp facets soft down into primitive impulse, sensual, sepia, wet, gritty, clinging to everything, earth reclaiming, finding new places to tuck her muck self. Boot bottoms, tire tracks, Santa spreading her voluptuous volume like peanut butter. March is mad, hot wax, cold wane, bipolar with robins, making holes in snow. March is full of holes that let mud out. Silver tarnished bird song breaks the serious silence with squabbles, philanderings, in erratic rhythms melting. March melts muscles. They drip slowly away with the icicles from the roof, like the exoskeleton of snow that I didn't know was holding me up. I languish, loose, languorous, strength Delilah cut. I lie, a puddle, reflecting on past ice castle glory. Lost in earth and air, I flow, submit, stream, not bridge, down the ways of least resistance for the washing clean of wishes, wandering, winding in and out of winter's last whimpers. I should say that I'm new here, and I'm from Canada. I'm from Blythe, Ontario. So yeah, this was we have winter. And the second one is shorter, and it's a love poem. I don't know if anybody else experiences this, but maybe it's got to do with being a poet, but I tend to live in my head a lot. So this is called an abstraction on the tangible with trees. I tend to wander through forest of abstractions to find the tangible, the old humpback chair in the living room, the knots on the pine floor speaking the steady code of trees, the pictures on the walls with trees in them, the trees framed by windows, the dream catcher in the window, the picture of the stag in trees, my abstraction of maleness, an invitation. Then you came to plant trees, catch my dreams, sit in the chair, and slowly make the abstract tangible, as if you had emerged tangible from some abstraction of mine, but that would only be the part of you, that would only be the part that was not you. The best part is you. Thank you.
Oh, that was beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Hope to see you next time too. Sean O'Connor.
Hi, Glenn. Thank you for having me here. It's my first time, and I'm talking to you from Tipperary in Ireland. I noticed a lot of Irish surnames there.
Yeah, another Irish poet. Mary Gunn is on the phone from Ireland as well.
That's right. Yeah, not too far. Only 100 miles away from me. I'm going to read two haibun. The first is called Decline. Forgive me as I'm always nervous when I'm reading, so bear with me. Decline. The god of water speaks in the susurration of a stream, saying, silence is a friend. I listen, numbness ebbing in the whispering quietude. In my drunkenness, the stony ground feels soft and almost salving. I can open one eye, my face all swollen and bloodied. In my mouth, the metallic taste of blood. Broken boned, I know I'm dying. Overfields, frost forming, distant shouts, the flashing of torches, but no one comes. Blackberry ripe, through a tangle of briars, the belt of Orion. By a static lake, the god of water says, reach. So I pick up a stone, hand-sized and round, made smooth by the constant caress of the water god. Reaching back, tilting to the transfer of weight, the finding of fulcrum, eyes fixed on the shadow shape of an island, a holy place. Not a sound, but an outbreath on swing of stone, arching high and away into darkness. The god of water watches, waiting. Absorbed into the nothingness, the soundless stone arcs unseen. I wait for a kerplunk that does not come. No rolling ripples reach my feet. Into the forever waiting, almost inaudibly, the god of water whispers, look. Hidden and revealed in the sway of bulrushes, tonight's only star. At the point of air, a heaving sea, cold and black. In waves thundering ashore, rocks rolling clatter and clank. The god of water roars with delight at the triumph of solitude. The wind god, too, rises up in song, and in the singing of the shoving wind, the cry is carried from beyond the dunes, the searching calls of my father, who has lost me. I turn and call to him, lean into a scream carried out and over the icy sea, where no one but the gods themselves can hear. Starless sky, pouring into loneliness, the foghorns moan. And finally, a second piece, a shorter piece called Black. Utter silence, you can almost hear it, falling snow. The flurries confuse, through them, his solidity, the certainty of his stance, black beyond black, darkness, depth, folds of flesh and muscle, shadowless here, just clean black dark. On his back, flakes of snowfall disappear, melt on his energy, the unseen heat of darkness. The eye of a bull, glinting through the universe, the pale light of Jupiter. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. That first poem, in and around that spot where you speak of the belt of Orion, I really felt like I was there and alone. It was so quiet and poignant. That was great. That was very, very well done. Thank you for sharing that with us.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Ginny.
Hello.
Hey, welcome back.
Thanks. Thanks for having me. The first poem I'm going to read is called Molly's. My dad never blinkered and stopped at Molly's root beer stand. Cars and bodies packed around rust-red picnic tables. Windowless and caving in now, although the sign has held up well, straight as an arrow letters since 1925. My dad was in the dairy business, didn't trust family-run places. Soft ice cream machines are tricky to clean. Cones can be ominous. I had to imagine Molly dishing up soft serve and floats galore for years. My dad never gave her a chance. He must have been wrong about Molly. I bet she wore sensible crepe-soled shoes, white scalloped aprons, hairnets, spare silver jewelry. She was religious, but that was only in the air. Friendly, not overly talkative, efficient, sanitary. She began making homemade root beer because she could, earned a decent living, time to think during winter months, liked snowfalls, songbirds, mystery books, and black licorice. Started to keep a diary once and threw it away. In woods of shade and shadows, decay is lovely on Molly. Roof beams slanted, resting against each other, a delicate house of cards. Open air windows, green lichen and moss creeping over wood beam, warming, softening sharp contours of construction and reality. I consider stopping every time I pass, but my steering wheel is locked. Some things are meant to remain in the distance. And the other piece is just a real short nonfiction piece called Stardust. The first recorded music I remember hearing played inside the duplex my family rented when I was a little girl. It was opera music, drifting through plaster and baseboard from the unit next door, or Nat King Cole. Our neighbors, Mr. and Mrs. Cassio, played Italian opera recordings every evening while they had dinner together. Mrs. Cassio's dinners always smelled a lot better than my mother's. Between 6 and 7 o'clock, we never switched our record player on, never lifted the arm and set the needles to a spinning, shiny black pancake. That was the Cassio's dinner hour, and we kept it sacred. My older brothers mimicked the opera singers by standing in their bare feet on the furniture in our living room, holding fake microphones up to wide oval mouths, hands on their hearts, arms sweeping back and forth for dramatic effect. The audience was me on the floor in front of them. Sometimes Kurt would arrive with his hair slicked back shiny. Mark stuffed a pillow up his shirt to give himself a fat belly as he performed. I didn't really understand the whole thing, but it was quite the spectacle. They put so much into it. I'd applaud along with the recorded applause, piping in from the dining room next door, mimicking bravo, bravo, and sometimes we'd hear the Cassios laughing. When opera wasn't playing, Nat King Cole was singing, a deep, velvety voice that blessed every room in our house, a lullaby. Even when I hear him now, I think my high blood pressure throws her hands in the air and surrenders. There are two songs I remember. One was about a rambling rose and the other about stars. It began with Purple Dusk of Twilight. Later, I learned the title was Stardust. I thought about the song Stardust again recently. Although my brother Mark taught me a lot about stars and space while he was still alive, he didn't teach me everything because he didn't live long enough to learn everything he wanted to. I keep a mental list of scientific discoveries I'll be sure to tell him about if I ever get the chance. Scientists have found that Antarctica's snow is sprinkled with stardust. It's fun to think of it as magical glitter, powdered diamonds, a substance heartbreaking and opalescent, but it is really a microscopic form of iron not produced on Earth or anywhere in our solar system. The result of a faraway supernova, a star's death, an explosion that sent all the elements of the star ever produced inside of her out into space, to float where they might, to land where they did on the snow crust of this planet. Mark knew that the starlight seen by telescope is 1,000,000 years old and that all the elements of a human body are made inside a star, that we are all star made. Yet I think he'd be surprised to learn that if you form a snowball in Antarctica, you are holding stardust in your hands. Thank you.
That's really nice. I like when people take contemporary pieces of media and things like that and weave them in, because as the reader, we just come to the poem with something that we can relate to. Let's see. I think Joe Murphy is not here now. Is that true? Sarah? Get out of here. Well, some few people dropped out here. Hold on. Michael Lewis Beck.
Yeah, I'm here. Thanks, Glenn. I'm going to read 2 poems. The first one, by way of a little background, and I'm glad we have at least 2 Irish people here because they know who Derek Mann is. And Derek Mann is a famous Irish poet who during COVID wrote a poem that became widely known and loved in Ireland. And that poem was called Everything is Going to Be All Right. And this was and then unfortunately, Derek died of COVID. And so I wrote a poem in response to Derek's work, and this is coming out this month in the Southward magazine. It's an Irish publication. So, everything is all right now and then, after Derek Mann. How can I not be happy seeing the sunshine through my October window on a row of tiny jag-eyed pumpkins carved by little kids in the neighborhood? There will be dying, but they live for now. And then, well, another time we'll talk about that, or write verse that rises up from heart to hand. The moon comes out every night, seen or unseen, glowing over gardens and towns, full of folks waking and sleeping, dying. Everything is all right now and then. This one is now for something completely different. As this just coming out, just came out today in a new magazine called Blue House Journal. It's entitled French Eggs. I have like maybe 100 poems about eggs. This is one that they liked. French eggs. For breakfast, I always order the same: coffee, white toast, 2 bacon, 2 eggs basted. That's what I'm having this morning in Palo Alto at the Buttery on Emerson. Bacon's a little too wet, too porky. The coffee straight and black. The lady on the next stool's in black too. I notice her eggs. Soft they look, big. Yellow yolks. I ask, they good, those eggs? Yes. Hard to get good basted. How'd you order? I am French. I say medium, the yellow. They look like twin moons, full. Yes, they are good. I thought about breaking into French, telling her about when I had Paris by the tail. I didn't, just paid the check, twice as much as the Hamburg Inn back home, half as good. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Derek died in October, Derek Mann. If you want to look up his work, it's Mahon. Okay, so if you guys are interested in that.
I learned this from the Irish, that it's the spelling. That's good, Glenn. The spelling looks like Mahon to Americans, but my Irish friends set me straight.
Yeah, well, that's fine. I just,
No. Yeah, thank you.
go and get some of it. Very,
Yeah.
very good voice, and it's, whenever we lose a good one, we're all diminished. Carol Mertz,
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
It's nice to be here and thank you everyone and thank you, Glenn. You published for me at Prolific Press my first chapbook called Toward a Peeping Sunrise. My two readings will be short poems from that chapbook. And may I just say that I appreciate, Len, that you shared difficult things, and I just wanted to thank you. My two poems are called Waking and Eternity. The first, Waking. There is a stretched space between the thinking pillow and tiny tufts of pure thought. Though not knowing, it shrinks from itself and lies a while inert. It turns in its bed of thought and, touching first light, throws itself toward a peeping sunrise, vowing, I will yield. Shrunken now, the space between there and here, between yesterday and today. The second, Eternity, I called Eternity after Blake. He who would his trust employ opens to a life of joy. When in death he does arise, greeted by heaven, a new surprise. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. So nice to hear your voice again. Shasta.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, well, my first poem is from Prolific Press's 3-line poetry COVID edition, and it's a 3-line poem. So it's called Song of Ice Cream. Children dance 6 feet apart along this shared road. Song of Ice Cream. Children dance 6 feet apart along this shared road. My next one is a little bit longer. It's about a milestone moment in my granddaughter's life. It's called Granddaughter. You hand me your temporary driver's license. Interim, it says, I see you swoosh into the world. One breath turning alien blue into pink baby standing taller than me now. Interim, it says, you are a toddler in yellow lace, smiling an ageless poise, smiling an ageless poise, swooping your little brother up to pull 16 balloons down. Interim, it says, your first day of school, pennies in your pocket for hopscotch, you swing open the door for friends you've known more than half your life. Interim, it says, your 8th grade graduation, confusion as young adults march in. Your mother chatters on about the family's need for another driver. Interim, it says, your birthday candles are blown out. You hand me a slice of your future. I give you your new license and compliment you on your picture. Interim, it says. Thank you.
All right. Is there anyone here that did not read? I feel like I did a bang up job today. Didn't miss anybody. All right, stick around for just a minute for me to make a couple of announcements. I'm going to wrap this up for the Facebook group. Thank you, everybody, for stopping in. For those of you on Facebook that came to listen, we really appreciate. I know the poets love their voices to be heard. Please go to the Facebook or to the YouTube channel and like the channel and click like on the video. The purpose of that being that we want young people and new poets to see that these kinds of things are happening. And the only way that they're going to stumble into it is if we get, a little bit of activity on that page. Okay, so thank you all, and we'll see you next month. I'll make an announcement about that.